Riders JT Sports Master guys with another video. In this video, I'm here with my Green Bay Packers 2019 wide receiver preview. Going to be going through all of the wide receivers currently on the Green Bay Packers roster. And before I begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I upload NFL videos, NFL content daily. And also make sure to like the video and share it as well. So the Green Bay Packers wide receiving core. They have a lot of young wide receivers on their roster who I am really high on. I believe a lot of these young wide receivers have a lot of upside. And of course, they have Davante Adams, who I believe was one of the best wide receivers in all of football last season. So they have a lot of young talent at this wide receiving core. Going to be interesting to seeing how they end up developing over the 2019 NFL season, because a lot of these young guys, they got a little bit of experience last season. So it's going to be interesting seeing all these young wide receivers in 2019 in this Matt LaFleur offense. So the first guy that we have is EQUANIMEOUS St. Brown. Now, St. Brown is my favorite wide receiver on this Green Bay Packers roster, or favorite young wide receiver on this Green Bay Packers roster. And I think that he has, out of all the young wide receivers that they have on their roster, I think St. Brown has the most potential out of all of them. I really like what I saw out of him, despite not having the crazy amount of production. 328 receiving yards, 21 receptions. I think he's going to be on the rise. I think he's a guy who's going to have a lot of potential in 2019, and I think that he ends up having a pretty productive season for the Green Bay Packers in 2019. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up having 700 or 800 receiving yards, probably 50 receptions, and probably 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think St. Brown is really underrated. I don't think he's getting enough buzz, but I think he has a big chance to have a very solid season in 2019 for the Green Bay Packers. Next up, they have Allen Lazard. Now, Allen Lazard was an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State in 2018. He ended up getting signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars and was on their practice squad for the entire 2018 season. Ended up getting picked up by the Green Bay Packers late in December. Now, in 2013, he was one of the most highly touted high school football players in the nation. Ended up committing to Iowa State. He has great size. He's 6'5", 227 pounds. Also has strong hands as well. And all those variables that I just mentioned make him a very great target in the red zone and a big body wide receiver. But the big knock on him is that he lacks top end speed and also isn't really that polished as a route runner. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see if he can make this Green Bay Packers roster. Next up, we have Darius Shepherd. Now, I really like Darius Shepherd a lot. Darius Shepherd was an undrafted free agent out of North Dakota State, and the Green Bay Packers signed him after he had a very impressive rookie minicamp, and he was one of the best slot receivers in the FCS, and also was able to return, also had some return ability as well, returning punts and kicks. And according to Pro Football Focus, he was the second greatest slot receiver going into the 2019 NFL Draft by Pro Football Focus, behind Andy Isabella, who went to the Arizona Cardinals. And he probably is a long shot by most people in most people's eyes to make the Green Bay Packers 53-man roster. But I think he should be able to make their practice squad just on his ability to contribute on special teams and also put potential at that slot receiver position. So I think he ends up making the Green Bay Packers practice squad and ends up getting moved up to their main roster later on down the stretch of the 2019 NFL season. So I do think he will be able to make the main roster when the season begins. But when they first start doing their 90, when they have the 90 guys on the roster and they start trimming down the roster, I don't think he will make the roster then, but he should be able to make the roster by getting moved up after having a couple weeks on the practice squad. Next up, we have Davante Adams. Now, Davante Adams was one of the best wide receivers in 2019, had 1,386 receiving yards, 111 receptions, and 13 touchdowns. And to believe it or not, I think Davante Adams is going to be in for an even bigger 2019 NFL season. I think he's a guy who could end up having 1,500 receiving yards, probably ends up leading the NFL receptions, and probably will have about the same amount of touchdowns because he is Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy, and Aaron Rodgers trusts him the most. So I think we're going to see a lot more of Davante Adams having a bigger season than what he had in 2018. And he is Aaron Rodgers' most reliable target, the most consistent target. He's the guy that Aaron Rodgers trusts trust the most out of all of the wide receivers that they have on the roster. So I think that Davante Adams could end up having an even bigger 2019 season than what he had the previous year in 2018. Next up, we have Geronimo Allison. Finally was able to pronounce that name. Now, 2018, he impressed me a lot. He had a couple of good outings in 2018. Had 303 receiving yards, 20 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. I think he's going to be in for a productive season in 2019. I say he has 700 receiving yards, 40 receptions, and 4 touchdowns. I think Geronimo Allison is going to be a very solid part and solid piece of this Green Bay Packers offense. Next up, we have JAWILL Davis. Now, JAWILL Davis was an undrafted free agent out of Bethune-Cookman in 2018. He was signed by the New York Giants and was on their practice squad for a few weeks before getting moved up to their main roster, and had a few appearances in a couple of games for the Giants until he ended up getting put on their injury reserve in December, and then I guess that the Green Bay Packers ended up picking him up, and I think Joel Davis has a lot of potential. When he was with the New York Giants, a lot of people said that he had the potential to be the next Victor Cruz. For those of you guys who don't remember Victor Cruz, he was a very big part of the New York Giants Super Bowl run a few years ago, back in 2011. So I think Joel Davis, I don't know if he'll make the roster for the Green Bay Packers, but I do think he can make their practice squad and ends up getting moved up just because he has the ability to contribute on special teams. With the New York Giants last season, he returned a few punts and a few kickoff as well. So Joel Davis has some potential, but I think mostly if he makes the roster, he probably will end up getting moved up later on this season, but mostly practice squad guy. Next up, we have Jamon Moore. Now, Jamon Moore was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the 4th round of the 2018 NFL draft out of Missouri, coming off 2 back-to-back seasons with Missouri. And a lot of people had high expectations for him going into the 2018 NFL season for the Green Bay Packers, but he ended up having a very, very underwhelming rookie season. But most rookie wideouts struggle in their rookie seasons trying to adjust to the NFL game. So I think Jamon Moore could bounce back in 2019 and have a better 2019 season than what he had in 2018. Only had 15 receptions for 15 receiving yards for 2 receptions. So I think he could bounce back in 2019. I think he could end up having a okay season in 2019. Going to be very interesting. Next up, we have excuse me if I mispronounce the name, Kabine Into. I think that's how you pronounce that. Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry if I messed that name up. He was an undrafted free agent out of Colorado. He has good length and is very good at catching those 50-50 balls and those jump balls, and could be a very good deep threat with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. But I think he will probably end up being a special teamer, and I don't even know if he's going to end up making the roster. I don't really know. So it's going to be very interesting because they have a lot of talented young wide receivers, but he does have a good length on his arms and is very good at catching those 50-50 balls and those jump balls. So he could potentially be a very good deep threat and a very good red zone target if he ends up making the roster. Next up, we have Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Now, in 2018, I was very impressed with what he did last season. He had 581 receiving yards, 38 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. So I think in 2019, he's another guy who I think could take another big step in 2019. I think he could end up being outside of 1,000 receiving yards. I think he'll probably be in the 900, 800 range. He'll probably get a couple of more receptions, probably around 50, and I think he'll probably have 3 or 4 touchdowns as well. He's a guy that I really like a lot, and it's going to be very interesting seeing his role in this Green Bay Packers offense in 2019. Next up, we have T.O. Redding. T.O. Redding was undrafted in 2018 out of Bowling Green University. He got signed by the Detroit Lions, ended up getting waived by them in August. And after he got waived by the Detroit Lions, he spent time in the Washington Redskins practice squad and then was on the Green Bay Packers practice squad in November and was on the practice squad for the rest of the 2018 NFL season. So he's another guy. I don't really know if he's going to be able to make the roster, but hey, everybody has a chance. Next up, we have Trevor Davis. Now, from what I've been reading, Trevor Davis has been impressing the Green Bay Packers coaching staff so far this offseason, and he should be able to get some solid playing time this season for the Green Bay Packers based on the reports that I have heard and have read when I was researching facts for these videos. Next up, we have Jake Kamaru. Now, in 2018, he had 103 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and 1 touchdown. He's another guy who has been getting hyped up a lot by this Green Bay Packers coaching staff. He's been having a solid offseason for the Green Bay Packers and is in the mix for the Packers starting wide receiver spots, or one of the Green Bay Packers starting wide receiver spots. And he should be very productive for the Green Bay Packers this season as well. So this is it for my Green Bay Packers 2019 wide receiver preview. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. If you guys have any other teams that you guys want me to do, make sure to comment those teams in the position for those teams down in the comment section down below. Also, make sure to like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching.